To order the Tuesday, May 17th meeting of the Board of Commissioners at a regular meeting and a workshop meeting combined. We will do the Pledge of Allegiance followed by an invocation. If you will please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Almighty God, simple prayer. Help us to do the right thing. Amen. The agenda is before you. Are there any changes?
Not 11, 3, 5, discussion on the town hall, number 6 for personnel matter.
Okay. There was some talk about the taking the generator bid off. Is that correct? Okay. Well, I believe that we're in the process of changing the plan to build a new town hall. I believe that instead we are going to discuss buying Jim Bergen's building for $3.5 million for the town officials. I believe that we will have to renovate the old town hall for the police. I believe that we're looking at adjusting town taxes. I believe that we are in a position to throw away some $700,000 that we have paid towards the construction of a new town hall. And I believe that we're going to have blame shifted over to Jerry Vincent for all of this. That's my belief. Is the agenda approved with the additional closed session?
Mayor, can I make a comment, please?
You certainly may.
I don't think that we would be throwing away $700,000 if we can save the taxpayers almost, right now, over $18 million for a town hall. And right now, I'm sorry, but I don't think we ought to put it on the taxpayers' back. I just want to make that comment. I think we need to maybe take a couple of years because we are in a recession or getting ready to get into a recession. And I think as being the servants of this town, it is our fiscal responsibility to make sure that the burden does not lie on the taxpayers. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is the agenda approved as changed?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda without your comments.
That's out of order. Is there another motion? Oh my God.
Make a motion to go ahead and approve the agenda.
Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand, please. So ordered. All right, there are two presentations, National Public Works Week Proclamation. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Angier. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are federally mandated first responders and the engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste something came up. Solid waste systems, public buildings and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. And whereas it's in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Anger to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interests and understand the importance of public works first responders and public works programs in their respective communities. Whereas the year 2022, this year, marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Be it now, and therefore, without objection from the board, be it resolved that I, as mayor of the town of Anger, proclaim National Public Works Week as May 15 through 21, 2022. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and governmental agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. How about that? Okay, another proclamation having to do with National Police Week. Whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15 as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15 falls as National Police Week. Whereas the members of law enforcement agency of the town of Anger play an important role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of our community. And whereas it's important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, protecting them against violence or disorder, and protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. Whereas our police department has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency, which unceasingly, how about that, provides a vital public service. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Robert K. Smith, Mayor of the town of Anger, proclaim National Police Week as May 15 to 21, 2022, it says 21, and further extend appreciation to our Police Chief Lee Thompson and to all our law enforcement for their vital service they perform and their exemplary dedication to the community they serve. Officer, would you stand, please, and over there. Okay. All right. Then we have a public comment time. The only person signing up is Erin Beckton. If you'll come forward and identify yourself and your address, please.
Hi, I'm Erin Beckton. My address is 6410 Wimberley Road. And my comments about the annexation, we just have some concerns regarding property buffers and traffic that would be.
Okay, let me ask you, would you rather wait until we take that up to make your comments? These are basically for general comments, but you're free to proceed if you want to.
That'll be perfectly fine.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll call you back up then.
All right.
All right. Consent agenda. The approval of the minutes for March 15, April 5, and April 19.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda minutes.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your right hand, please. Okay, it's unanimous. All right, public hearing. We have a petition for annexation. It's submitted by Joel Young and Cheryl Young, Jr., and requesting to annex approximately 122.5 acres located at 6600 Wimberley Road. The sufficiency of the petition and certification of the results were issued in April. A date to set the public hearing was approved in April and advertised. Following the required public hearing, the town board will be qualified to consider the adoption of an ordinance to annex the property. So, first going to ask Sean to present information to the board, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Test. Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We have several items on tonight's agenda. The first three of which, under the public hearings on your agenda, are all related. I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. There are two annexation petitions back-to-back, followed by a conditional rezoning request for those two subject parcels. So, if the two annexations are not approved by the board, the rezoning cannot be voted on tonight because it is not currently in Andrew's jurisdiction until annexed.
Right.
I want to make sure that's clear up front. Okay. Number one under public hearings, the Young parcel. Like the mayor said, over 120 acres on Wimberley Road. This is kind of a vicinity map to give you an idea where we're talking about. This is the Harnett-Wake County line here. So just north of that Wake County line on Wimberley Road, headed east. Look to your left. That's the Young property. Large tract that is currently wooded as we sit here today. Mr. Mayor, would you like to open and close the public hearing for that annexation before we look at the next tract?
Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Does anyone have comments on this portion of the several public hearings? Yes, sir.
Well, Jim Chandler with Timmons Group. Our office address is 5410 Trinity Road in Raleigh, 27607. And we're here on behalf of the owner, developer, and we're in favor of water and sewer available to serve this site. Had a lot of work with Jimmy's office trying to figure out the best way to do it. But
Okay.
more to come on that later, but we're definitely in favor of this and the next case.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from those in attendance? All right, any questions or comments from the board?
Sean, with this, what is, excuse me, what is the purple indicated area on here already?
Good question. The parcel in questions tonight are unincorporated Wake County. The parcel in purple on the map there was previously annexed into Anger. That is the Highland Ridge subdivision currently under construction. So this property would be directly next door to the southeast.
Okay.
What is in between there?
This is the larger Young parcel here in red. The one right behind it is the next one on the agenda.
I see. Okay.
Mhm. So they will be contiguous.
Well, does that also include the bottom portion butting down there too? The thin strip between the purple existing already. What about the large vacant one to the left of it?
Beyond the point.
This one over
Yeah.
here. That one has not been annexed,
Okay.
not under consideration.
And what is the subdivision to the left already with the homes in there?
Allen
Over
Ridge.
here?
Oh, I'm
No.
sorry.
the white,
Let's see here.
all of those lots in there to the left of that water, yes, up in there.
Just a row of single-family homes off of Onslow Stevenson Road.
Single-family homes now.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, anything else from the board? Dan, should we hear and vote on these separately?
I think that would make most sense.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. And is there any other discussion by the board? If not, I'll now entertain a motion to approve or deny the ordinance to extend the corporate limits of Anger.
I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the annexation petition for the 122.5 acres located at 6,600 Wimberley Road.
Okay? Is there further discussion on this? If not, all in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Okay, that's unanimous. All right. Now, so the second part of this is the smaller segment adjacent to the purple. Sean, would you tell us about that? And then we'll go into another hearing.
Yes, sir. Roughly about 15 and a half or 16 acres directly north of that young parcel just approved for annexation is the William Coy Rogers heirs parcel. The petitioner, the applicant, future developer, would like to create connectivity to the Highland Ridge subdivision to the north there for street connectivity and utility purposes. So they would actually be physically touching if this annexation and rezoning is approved.
Okay. Any questions of Sean? If not, are there any comments from the audience? Okay, if not, and if there are no additional comments from the board, is there a motion to approve or deny the ordinance to extend the corporate limits of Anger as to this parcel?
I make the motion that we extend the corporate limits for this parcel of property.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, thank you. And I'm not discriminating against left hands, but it just seems to work. Okay. All right. Okay, then there's a conditional rezoning request from the Pulte Group to rezone both of these parcels, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Present this to us, please.
Troy, can you switch to the other staff report? Okay, so the parcels just approved by the board for annexation are under consideration for a conditional rezoning. The previous Wake County zoning was R30, and the proposed Town of Andrews zoning is our conditional R6 district. Altogether, the parcels in question total about 145 acres. There's a vicinity map on the screen with the aerial map from the Harnett County GIS site showing you that the parcels in question are currently wooded right here. This is Wimberley Road in front. That yellow line is the Wake County, Harnett County line. And like we discussed before, the Highland Ridge subdivision is just to the north, outlined in this orange dashed line here. On page 2 of your staff report, you'll see a zoning compatibility chart. As we always do, we looked at the surrounding zoning district for parcels in question. That bright yellow color that takes up most of the map was the previous Wake County R30 zoning district. That's Wake County's low-density residential district, similar to Andrews RA30. The proposed zoning is CZR6. The underlying zoning district of R6 sets a base limit of 6,000 square foot lots on the low side. There's only one P in the box on your right. You'll notice that is because the applicant has proposed only single-family homes for this rezoning plan. And we'll get to the rezoning conditions here in a minute. Physical characteristics, like I've mentioned a couple times, vacant wooden land as we sit here today. Surrounding land uses include low-density residential, some nearby agricultural uses, as well as that recently approved Highland Ridge subdivision, which, as you can see on the map, is already zoned standard R6. I believe there's roughly 256 lots on that roughly 100-acre parcel to the north. Town of Anger water and sewer will be extended to serve this development since it has now been annexed into Anger. Always point out that that is solely the developer's responsibility to engineer, design, and install those utilities to serve their project. Transportation access will be provided by Wimberley Road. There has been 2 access points proposed, as you'll see on the subdivision plan here shortly. As we always do, we have to look at our land use map. And as you'll notice, the red arrow is pointed to a grayed out area. That is because prior to tonight's meeting, this property was not in Andrews' jurisdiction. Upon this rezoning approval, we will go back and add this to our land use map and assign appropriate density classification. Our R6 district is typically in line with what we call our medium density residential land use classification. Rule of thumb is 2 to 5 units an acre. Okay, the proposed subdivision plan. Each board member should have an 8.5 by 11 separate sheet, somewhere close to their staff report, to give you an idea of what the layout proposed is. And it is color coded, and I'm going to walk through that briefly before we hear from the applicant, and he can fill in any gaps that I miss. Like I mentioned earlier, there is only single-family lots approved in this development, or proposed rather, in this development. 344 total lots altogether on that roughly 145 acres gives you 2.36 units per acre. So on the lower end of our medium density land use classification. The lots shown in orange on that plan represent lots between 6,000 and 7,000 square feet. The lots in blue on that plan represent lots between 7,000 and 10,000 square feet. And the yellow lots on the plan represent those lots over 10,000 square feet. To run through the totals, based on my count here, looks like there was 41 lots of the 344 that will be in excess of the 10,000 square foot size. So more associated with an R10 zoning. In that mid-range is 173 of the 344. And in that smaller 6,000 to 7,000 square foot range is 130 of that 344. So in discussions with the applicant, I have walked them through the board's previous recommendations on these rezoning hearings. They've provided what I think is a good mixture of lot sizes in this development. They have not chosen to go down to the minimum lot size as they could have for a parcel this large. They certainly could have applied for more density. The staff evaluation is on the last page of your staff report. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning to CZR6 with the conditions list attached. We'll go through those one by one here in a second. I did want to point out that the planning board also recommended of the approval of the rezoning with these conditions, and there was one condition in particular the planning board was in strong support of, and the applicant agreed to at that planning board meeting. And that was the installation of both left and right turn lanes at both entrances on Wimberley Road. So that was added to the conditions list at that planning board meeting, and that is carried with both mine and the planning board's recommendation for you tonight. Like I mentioned, there's a list of conditions on a separate sheet of paper behind the staff report. I believe there are 17 conditions total. Where did we get those conditions? Well, it was a group effort. The applicant proposed several conditions on their original rezoning plan before you. And then the discussions with them and at the planning board meeting, a couple were added or changed. I'm going to buzz through them quickly. Please stop me if one of these is not clear. Number 1, the parcel in question shall only be developed with single-family lots. Number 2, there shall be no more than 344 total lots on the parcels in question. In the case of a reduction in total lot count based on unforeseen design constraints, the planning director may approve minor adjustment to this subdivision plan, meaning they could lose lots but not gain them. The minimum lot size shall be at least 6,000 square feet. At least 178 should be between 7 and 10,000 square feet. At least 45 should be greater than or equal to 10,000 square feet. The minimum lot width shall be at least 50 feet, which is our standard R6 lot. The minimum building setback shall be as required in the R6 district, which is 5 feet on each side lot. There shall be a minimum of 10 acres of open space preserved in accordance with Chapter 6 of the zoning ordinance. Number 9, there should be curb, gutter, 5-foot sidewalk installed throughout the proposed subdivision on both sides of each proposed street and along the road frontage on Wimberley Road, which stubs to each adjacent property. Number 10, a 15-foot Type A landscape buffer shall be installed where the proposed lot is directly adjacent to a neighboring property. And number 11, all dwellings on the proposed lot shall have at least a 2-car garage. All lots shall have 2 or more types of finishes on the front facade, and there are a couple examples listed. A minimum of 4 active recreational open spaces will be provided. Let's see. Improvements to each of the recreational and usable open space areas shall be determined at construction drawings for each respective phase. Gathering areas with benches and picnic tables, tot lots, play lawns, dog parks, shade shelter / gazebo are some examples of those active recreational spaces. Number 15, a neighborhood recreation amenity area is proposed within the development to include a cabana and a pool. The cabana should include a minimum of 500 square feet covered area with bathrooms for a minimum 3,000 square foot pool. And then that last condition on the list is the one added by staff and the planning board. Westbound right turn lanes and eastbound left turn lane shall be installed to DOT standards to serve each proposed access onto Wimberley Road. I realize there is a typo between number 13 and 14. Those are intended to be the same condition. That is all one sentence. Should not be a separate number 14. Other than that change on the conditions list, does the board have any questions for me before we hear from the applicants?
Sean, you mentioned, you say here that there should be a minimum of 10 acres of open space preserved in the proposed subdivision. You'd go on to mention later about the active green space. Can you tell me then what would the percentage be of actual green space to this? I'm afraid I can't translate acres into what the percentage is against this.
Sure.
And if you could even tell me what the difference is, what the percentage of that is active. And because I don't care about wetlands and stuff like that. It really doesn't. That doesn't make up for other space to walk on and play and have a place to do something. Do you have an idea what the percentage is of green space at this time to this
I do.
parcel?
There is actually I know it's very small print in the site data
Oh,
table.
I couldn't see
way
that
here.
little stuff down there. But
There is a total summary and a percentage. As the board is probably aware, all major subdivisions in Angier have to have 20% open space up to 10 acres. That's the standard. This proposal has a total of 58.4 acres of open space, which is 40% of the total tract. Half of the open space required, or 5 of the 10 acres, is required for active open space, and that is what they have listed here. They will, at the construction drawing phase, choose from one of those options provided in the conditions list to reach that 5 acres.
right. So you're saying that roughly about 40% of this
Will be permanently preserved.
permanently
and
preserved
undeveloped.
space.
Yep.
Okay. After that 8% last debacle, I have to ask this question. I'm happy to hear 40%. That's a good number.
Okay. Any questions of Sean? Well, just a second. Okay. We'll now open the public hearing to those in the audience. Now, come on up.
Actually, I just have a question. Can you repeat what you said about the buffer and the two-car garage? Is that the attached or detached?
I don't know that we specified that, did we? But the intention is attached.
Okay. And so you now need to present your side of it.
Sure, Jim Chandler with Timmons Group again. Sean does a great job, so he's pretty much hit all the bullet highlight points we wanted to share with you, but I'll just recap a few. Again, hearing concerns, you want a mix of lots. We've tried to provide a mix of lots, and, even though it's R6 conditional, I mean, the average lot size is almost 8,200 square feet across the 344 total lots proposed. Open space, stole my thunder. 10's required. We are providing 40%, and committing to pool and amenity spaces, pocket parks, dog parks, benches that we'll get into construction plan details with Sean at CD level. We talked about sidewalks throughout. It was actually y'all changed that condition, I think, at Planning Board too, to add the sidewalks along Wimberley, which we agreed to do. The two-car garage, there is a 15-foot type A buffer per Angier standards against any lot that backs up to an existing lot. So I guess if you're a neighbor and on one of those lots, there would be a 15-foot type A buffer adjacent to your property. Of course, tried to add some architectural features. I know y'all are looking for a little better product in Angers these days, so they've tried to come to the table with some things that we think will dress it up. Again, committing to the recreational components. And then the most thing we did, based off lot size, a TIA was required. We did do a TIA. The TIA resulted in no required improvements, which we know y'all love to hear because Angier's growing. So knowing that was going to be an issue, we have already committed to both right and left turn lanes at both driveway entrances. We think connecting, we're compatible with the subdivision next door. They're stubbing a road to these two tracks. We have coordinated that layout to show that road connection there, so we'll promote interconnectivity between the two subdivisions. They are planning a proposed pump station on that site that we're still at zoning, so not in CDs yet, but we have had conversations about possible coordination with them, relocation. Intent to be where Angier ends up with one pump station, not two, between the two projects. So that'll be further developed. So I think that addresses the highlights. Of course, we have members here from Pulte. We have members here from the owner's delegation, so we can kind of get into whatever questions y'all may have if more come up. Thank you.
Y'all have agreed with the 16 additional zoning requirements?
We have, yes. And that was part of our planning board
Yeah.
decision to, yes, recommit to those tonight.
Yeah.
As a part of it.
Well, actually, there are 15 since 14 reproduces part of 13. Okay.
Everything typed on that sheet, regardless of number.
Okay, good.
Okay. Any other questions of the developer?
Notice you said you had 2 entrances and exits. What, on the right side here of the plan, I guess that's for future development, or?
Yeah, Sean loves to see those stubs. So, you know, that just as the adjoining subdivision, you approved stub to us, we're connecting to that. We have 2, so that'll be 1 entrance technically. Then we have 2 on Wimberley, and then we're proposing, since they're adjacent undeveloped properties to the east, we're proposing 2 stub roads that will be further connected in the future as those properties develop.
Yeah.
They're just stub to the extent practical, so we'll dedicate right away to the property line, and then build pavements and all utilities to the property line to the extent practical. As close as we can without crossing the line.
Okay, any further questions of the developer?
Just out of curiosity, could you tell me at this time? No, you don't have to. Is there an estimated? I guess the question would be. Let me ask 2 questions. What is the variance in square footage within the homes, which I'm assuming is either a finished upper floor or not a finished upper floor? So, what is the basic square footage of these homes that you're looking at building?
Good evening, Board. Rob Rudloff with Pulte Homes. We're very excited to be in Andrew tonight, talking to you guys. So our product size will probably vary from about 1,800 square feet on the small size to 2,800, on the higher end. So.
Which is basically probably finishing off an upper floor as opposed to a storage.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
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 Yeah, I mean, some of that is, but I think on some of the larger lots, they'll accommodate a
More square footage in that. And do you have any idea? I mean, nobody does at this time. We don't know where the world and the market is going, but I'm certainly keeping an eye on what we're building in here in Anger. And what do you have is your sign going to say starting at the 300,000s, 350,000s? I'm just curious as to, we keep being concerned up here about building homes that people can't afford and provide for in a lower price bracket. So I'm just curious as to what we think the price range would be from.
So I think today, if we were coming to market today, and it'll probably actually be before homes are actually sold, it'll be probably a couple years. But based on today, the sign would probably say from the 3s, someplace in the 3s, right? Maybe high 3s, but
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just always good to know. We'd like to, we're trying to find that affordable home for new home buyers, but it's very difficult to do in this world of inflation and what the market has driven us to at this point. So I'm just curious to know again what price range we're talking at new homes for Andrew.
Okay, if nothing, what about from the audience? Yes, sir. If you'll come forward and identify yourself and tell us where you live, please.
My name is Edward Curry. I live on the east side of the parcel with a farm, 58 acres. And my main concern is for the children, because there are going to be a lot of children there next to a farm with livestock, ponds, creeks. I was just wondering what kind of safety barriers for the children they would be making.
Okay, good question. Would the developer like to respond to that? I mean, we normally require shrubbery and stuff, but.
Yeah.
I'll start, and then he can finish. Well, I mean, if you scroll up, I mean, a lot of that's undevelopable area with the creeks, wetland, ponds that we're dealing with anyway. So, I mean, you can see we're only kind of touching it, his property kind of north and south along that line. And then, of course, we've already committed to some buffers that'll be in place from a landscape standpoint. I most stubborn roads can be problematic to neighbors, but I mean, I think that's the desire of the town for future connectivity, to have those stub roads in place. The utility is in place, so I mean, anything else you want to?
No, I think maybe the only thing I would add is, it's often, when we develop communities like this, it's not always, it's a difficult thing to really try and figure out, a balance between buffering things and not making it look like a fortress, sort of around it. So, that's, we think with the landscape buffers we're providing that, that will help. And, it's only a very, small number of houses, I think, that back up on that, if I understand correctly, on the east side. Is that the east side there? So, I would think the impact would be somewhat negligible.
Does that answer your question, sir?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, that's, all right.
Well, you would come back out there?
Mm-hmm.
If you'd like to.
I would. I'm very familiar with development. I developed and built houses for 42 years. And was always the main thing, playgrounds for the kids, if there's a lot of houses in one place, because they're gonna be running and playing, and you know how children are. All my concern, and people I've talked to, anything you can do other than making millions of dollars doing other stuff, if you could spend just a little money protecting the children that's gonna be living there. That's all I ask. There's a creek joining one side. If they get to that, they're gonna drown. Some of them. And it gets deep sometimes when it rains a lot, and they don't need to be. They need to be where they can't easily get to it. I mean, and you can put up all the signs you want to put up, no trespassing. I understand. That's what you probably want me to do, and I will. But responsibility, I think, is to the development, to build something, no more money than the safety things will cost to save children or give them a better place to live. That's all I gotta say.
Would you like to respond?
Well, in part. I
Okay.
can't respond to all of that, but, I mean, giving children places to play, I mean, you can easily, we're trying to provide centralized areas to direct them. I mean, hopefully parents are gonna do a good job. I mean, we're still well away from the creeks themselves. I mean, these houses will probably have fenced lots, to protect individual lots, but you can see there's 4 main recreation, one there. I mean, there's 4 main places where we're trying to provide those play equipment, benches, recreational spaces, the pool and cabana. I mean, these will be public streets, public sidewalks. I mean, now that it's annexed, it will have police service and, police tours. So, I mean, can I say we can keep them out of the creeks? No, but I mean, I think we've done a good job balancing, preserving those areas and dedicating open space that'll have recreational features that'll kind of attract them towards the center and away from the edges.
But the east side that was in discussion only has just a few houses along the border there, right?
Correct. And this is one of the active open space areas. Here's another. There's one there. It's hard to see those ones so close. They did one here. So not a lot of houses along that property. Correct.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. If you'd like to come forward, please.
So to kind of expand on what Mr. Curran mentioned, children don't always go where they're told to go. I don't know if any of y'all remember, but I remember going to places other than the parks. Mr. Curran's property runs straight down that side, and our property runs down on the bottom. And as he said, we have livestock, we have crops that are growing, we have things that are very important to us. If children come running around or somebody's dog gets out and comes after one of my animals, what am I to do? To be honest, the part that's one house and one street away from me is not gonna keep a child from coming onto my property and doing what they want, or an animal from running onto my property and doing what it wants.
Okay.
I think that's a little more towards what Mr. Curran was kind of concerned about. Not so much if they have something to do, but would they be willing to do that?
What sort of fencing do you have in that area?
We have woven wire fencing.
So to that extent, there'll be some impediment, yes, to children coming across.
Got small animals, got cute animals, and I can definitely say
Okay. All right. Anything else from either the developer or the audience? Yes. Right. Okay. I see you shaking your head. That seems to be a... Okay. All right. Anything further? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Steve Exton, 6410 Wimberley Road. I noticed there are 2 entrances to the development off of Wimberley. And I heard mention of that the right turn lane. Is that in the development, or is that adjustments that will be made on Wimberley Road? Okay. And then, what is the proposed address of the first entrance coming off? How far will all adjustments to the road be made with the purchase for the subdivision, or will the widening of the road be done prior to? Proposed widening of the road prior to the first entrance?
Well, you...
As you come around Wembley, and you're saying that there's going to be, there'll be an additional turn lane applied.
They would be built
Sure, I got you. And where would they start to widen? Do you have a proposal for where they would start to widen Wembley there for those turn lanes?
Where's your
For the record, the developer's indicating that the improvements would be within the property lines or the spacing of the subdivision.
And is there any additional money going from either the county or Anchor to improve the width and the curving on Wembley Road?
Wimberley's a county road, right?
Where would that fall? Would that fall with
It's a county.
okay. And that, thank you for your
Okay.
It's a
Thank you
state.
for your questions, sir. Okay. Is there anything further? If not, I would like to close the public hearing. And is there any other discussion from the board or questions to the staff?
Is there any way, Mr. Mayor, that we can, when we make the request to approve or deny, that we can add in there what one of the owners said about meeting the joining landowners and discuss fencing opportunities? Or
We could say something, for instance, for new number 16. What do you say?
okay.
So we could say we encourage.
Correct. Correct. Okay.
So we could say we encourage the developer to discuss with property owners fencing on the east and southeast side of the subdivision. Does that work? Okay. All right. That'll be the new number 16. You get that over there? Madam Clerk, did you get that? Okay. All right. Any further discussion from the board? Been a very constructive hearing. If not, is there a motion to approve or deny the conditional rezoning request as modified with the 16 different points?
I'll make a motion that we approve the R30 to R6 with the modifications, and we do encourage the developer to get with the property owners on the east and / southeast side of the subdivision to discuss potential fencing.
Okay. Which of course is number 16, but that's all right. Any further discussion on this? Okay. All in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. All right. Good discussion. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you, joining landowners, for being a part of this. Okay.
And also, Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank the planning board. I think they did a really good job in looking at this up front and giving us a cleaner picture as it came to us. So
I agree.
thanks to the planning board.
Okay. Next, number 4, a rezoning request for 0.345 acres located on the town's property at 92 South Broad Street West. A what?
You got it.
Excuse me?
He got a notice about item number 4. I'm not sure if this is the address.
He must be a joining
Yeah.
landowner. Okay.
He wanted to discuss it, but it was only in English. He was not quite sure what it said.
Okay.
And needs help.
Why don't we get Sean to present it, and then we'll be glad to help you. All right.
This item on our public hearing list, number 4, this rezoning request, is generated by town staff for the town of Andrew property located at 92 South Broad Street West. Vicinity map here gives you an idea of where we're talking about. The vacant lot on the corner of Lillington Street and South Broad Street West, directly behind Depot Square, where our stage and caboose is. On the other side of Lillington Street from that, we do have 2 small single-family homes, both on the west side and the south side of this property, as well as some frontage on Millington and South Broad Street. Reason for the rezoning request, it is currently zoned R10, and it is a very small lot, less than 1/3 of an acre total. The Board of Commissioners has directed staff and the manager to look into constructing a future Town of Andrew farmers market and mixed-use event space on this property. In order for us to facilitate that, we need to get this property rezoned to our central business district, similar to our downtown buildings, kind of diagonally across the intersection on South Broad Street. Now, the advantages of the condition, or the central business zoning district, are that that front and side corner setback can be reduced to 0 versus 20 feet in the R10 district. So that will substantially allow for more development of this property.
Okay.
That's the result. The second page of the staff report, the zone, scroll down a little bit, Monica. Zoning compatibility, this dark red color, that's the central business district. The staff is proposing we rezone to on the east side of South Broad Street. And this box right here in the tan color is the property in question. That's the R10 district. This is the Depot Square. That's open space and recreational zoning. And that pinkish reddish color on the west and south, that's the general commercial zoning along Highway 55. This is kind of nestled right in between our general commercial and our central business districts currently. This is a comparison, this chart on your right. R10 allows lots down to 10,000 square feet, central business down to 6,000 square feet. You can see here the P's in these boxes represent the permitted uses and the differences between each zoning district. Of course, governmental uses and town-sponsored farmers markets are permitted by right in central business. I noted the setbacks down here at the very bottom to give you an idea. R10 setbacks, 20 in the front, 20 on the corner side, 10 on the other side, 10 in the rear. Whereas the central business zoning district has a 0 front setback, a 0 corner side setback, 10 feet in the side, 10 feet in the rear, because they're adjacent to different zoning. So that's what our central business district does for the existing R10 parcels on the west and the south side. We still have to stay at least 10 feet away before we have a vertical structure.
It's not coming through on the video.
Test. A little better? Cool.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, 10 feet away from the existing home on the west, 10 feet away from the existing home on the right, property lines before you can build a vertical structure. We can still use this area for landscape buffers, fencing, parking, drive aisles, etc. Just no farmers market structure can be built within that 10 feet.
Just out of curiosity, if you'll go back, what is the asterisk after the P under churches?
So churches are permitted in central business, but there's a big caveat in the ordinance. Got to have 3 acres of land.
Ah, okay.
I'm not aware of a 3-acre parcel in our central business district, so that's a pretty big asterisk beside that P.
So that would only be new churches, right?
That's right.
Okay, the existing churches obviously
That's right.
do not.
Physical characteristics, you can see here on the aerial screenshot I took. Property is currently vacant. I understand that there were dwellings on that property many years ago that were removed. Surrounding land uses include medium density residential, like I mentioned, houses to the west and south. We've got some retail and office uses along 55 here. This property is adjacent to Depot Square to the north, and it will serve, like I mentioned, the town's future farmers market and mixed use event area. There is Town of Andrew public water and sewer available nearby, and it can be accessed by either or both Lillington Street and South Broad Street. As we always do, we weigh in with our land use plan. The red color on the land use map where that blue arrow is pointing, that's our commercial classification. That purple lavender color across Broad Street, that's our central business. So like I mentioned with the zoning, it's kind of right at the intersection between our business corridor on 55 and our central business on Broad Street, right there at that intersection. I won't read through everything on the staff evaluation. It is in front of you. Staff does recommend approval of the rezoning, the main reason of which, number one, we are expanding our downtown further south to allow for more commercial businesses that play off of our existing downtown businesses. And number two, that reduction in setback is going to be huge in terms of the usability of this property by the
Okay.
town.
Yeah.
The planning board did also recommend approval of this zoning at their April meeting.
Okay. All right. Public hearing, and are there any comments from those in the audience? Would you assist him to see if there's any way? Okay. Antonio, if you'll come forward to the microphone, please. Do you understand what's being presented here? Has Ms. Darce,
Yes, I understand.
okay.
He wanted to make sure that the property next to his, is that the property in question?
Yeah, right here is like,
This is,
this one is my property, this one.
and are you talking about this area here?
This one.
This one?
Oh,
This is
okay,
the-
okay.
And you're gonna have 10 feet between here and here, did you say?
10 feet from your property line
before
you think you'd be built.
No van a poder hacer nada por 10 pesos aquí,
Okay.
en este lado. What about that side? That's not y'all's?
No.
No,
Yeah.
solamente aquí.
Okay, ahorita tenía, bueno, ya el señor no vino, pero aquí tenemos un problema, ¿no? I got a little problem here because the big tree.
He said a big tree fell here. He thought originally the notice was about a tree.
Ah, okay.
But it's about the commercial zoning.
No.
I explained that, but he said there's a big tree that's fallen here, but it's not on his property.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And el señor no quería hacerse responsable de eso.
He said the guy that owns that property doesn't want to be responsible for dealing with that tree. He thought that he was being summoned about the tree. Is that bien lo que estás diciendo?
Let's see, the law on that is kind of tricky. Is this something Jimmy could look in, maybe? Is that something you?
Is it on town property?
No, well, no, that's true.
It's not
Okay.
on his property either.
Before, for Matthews, this property before, pero the guy, the son sell the house for
The
the
son
other guy.
sold the house,
For the other guys.
Okay.
and he doesn't know who they are. They're
Yeah.
not responding to him.
All right.
Code
Okay.
enforcement. Él dice que va-
Well, I hope we have addressed your concerns then.
¿Está bien?
I see, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
C'est bien. All right. Any questions or comments from the board? You have a comment? Or, okay. Any comments? If not,
Nope.
is there a motion to approve or deny the rezoning request?
I make a motion that,
Okay.
that we approve the rezoning request
Stereo.
for the 92 South Broad Street vacant lot.
To central business, right?
Yes, to central business.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Uh-oh. You
We
can
need some
vote
tissue.
orally if you'd like to, Alan.
Didn't go on the floor, but
Are you in favor of it, Alan?
yes, I am.
Okay, it passes unanimously. With apologies for the vote. Okay.
Thank you, Dolores.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dolores. Excellent. All right, new business. We have a resolution R011-2022 to direct the clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition submitted by Roger Howard Dupree for 91.85 acres on Tippett Road and Roy Adams Road. Now, this is just, as you know, a step in the process. We're just directing the clerk to look at it, be sure it's sufficient. Is there a motion to direct the clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition?
To do what? To rezone it?
To voluntary annexation.
Okay.
I make the motion that we direct the clerk to investigate Tippett Road
All right.
piece of property.
If no discussion, All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay. It passes unanimously. So, Madam Clerk, do your thing. Okay. And secondly, an ordinance to demolish a dilapidated dwelling. Who's going to present that? They had Sean again. Okay.
Be brief.
Yes, sir. Item number 2 under new business tonight. This is a request by staff for an ordinance to demolish the dilapidated dwelling at 922 North Broad Street East. I will give a brief summary of our case notes. Mr. Hodges, our code enforcement officer, has been working hard on this case since October of 2021, when he made first contact with the owners, Miss Elnora L. McDonald and Edward McDonald. The property has been abandoned for over a year, based on our investigation and conversations with the owner. It was built in 1945, roughly 835 square feet, and had a tax value after the Harnett County reval of $56,696. The property in question has continued to deteriorate, and the property owners have shown no sign to make repairs or demolish by their own doing. There was a list of steps in the process over the last 7 months described by Mr. Hodges in all of your staff report. To summarize, a hearing was held with the owner where the complaints were presented. A findings of fact was issued, giving the owners 90 days to make repairs and or demolish, both of which were not complied with. That's why we're here tonight. The property owner has expressed to staff that they do not intend to repair the home. So our final act at the end of the minimum housing process is to request either a closing of the dwelling or a demolition of the dwelling, depending on the proposed cost to repair it. In this case, we know the tax value says it's worth $56,000. There is a packet, 5 pages of photos, which is a small piece of a very large file of evidence suggesting why it would be substantially more than 50% of that $56,000 to repair the dwelling. And like I said, it does continue to deteriorate. There are holes in the floors and ceilings, mold issues, drainage issues, rotten floor issues, you name it. Does the board had a chance to look at those photos and the case file notes? They understand?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the size of the lot, Sean?
Good question. I didn't have that written down. I think it's
Caught you. Okay.
rather small. I would say in the 5,000 to 6,000 square foot range.
Okay, the reason I was asking, if it were torn down, would it be a candidate for a newer dwelling?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. Didn't mean to catch you where you hadn't written it some down, but
good.
oh well. Okay. All right. Is there any discussion from the board?
No, we're going to move ahead on propose to destroy it, and at whose expense?
The town will solicit bids from demolition contractors, and then we will choose the lowest bid. And once that contractor is paid, we will place a lien on the property.
On the property.
The property owner will have to pay before he sells it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and approve the demolishing of the dwellings at 922 North Broad Street, east side.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. That's unanimous. All right. Moving on. Okay. Budget amendment number 12. That would be Hans, yes.
This is a fairly straightforward budget amendment.
Yay.
Next month, no doubt we're gonna have a budget amendment that's gonna be explained, and it'll be exciting. This one is a bit more, just not as exciting. It's exciting, actually, bear with me. Thanks to ABC, of course, naturally, this is a part of it, and just what an outstanding job they have done. Part of this budget amendment has to do with, of course, the grades program, essentially, the money that they are putting in for the police department to have this program, essentially. And so it was $5,060, and this revenue is, we will treat this restricted. Just as we've treated the library revenue is restricted, so too this will be the same. It's good, it's very good. It's a great relationship between, of course, PD and ABC and whatnot, and of course the message is strong and clear. So that's one aspect of the budget amendment. So naturally, of course, we're going to increase allowable spending within the police department with specifically an expenditure line at the end of the fiscal year. If not all of the, or basically essentially the spread of the revenue over the expenditures, a positive spread will of course go on to the following fiscal year. So that's going to be great. Just let's remember that this is restricted. It's just that simple. So also in the general fund, there was a $10,000 Harnett County landfill credit. So we of course took in that revenue. We didn't anticipate that, while working on the budget. So that's cool. So then, of course, we increase allowable spending within the streets and sanitation department. So too with the library, as always. Katie most certainly has done well with the donations, and so there's about $800 of donations that we've received. That far exceed what we've anticipated, and so naturally, that expenditure line will be increased. So that's the general fund. Again, we're recognizing revenue that came in, and then of course we're going to increase allowable spending, keeping it a balanced budget. So that is the general fund, the 10 fund. The Highway 210 Capital Project Fund, it's really recognizing, there's a revenue line there called payment in lieu of sidewalks, something like that. Of course, I'm sure Sean could elaborate more on that, and really had to do with prior fiscal year revenue. That fund, there's just an expenditure line within that fund that is, it's a bit over. And so here we are just recognizing the 20,000, and we're covering the spending that has taken place on the Highway 210 project.
So may I ask, Sean, is this in a sense like a cash bond to build sidewalks in the future? If Hans, you would permit him to respond.
The Duke Energy substation on the north side of 210 headed west towards Lillington, when they submitted their site plan 3 or 4 years ago to expand that plant, the TRC required the installation of sidewalk along their portion of 210. But as you know, we have a 210 highway sidewalk project already in the works, so that their engineers did not engineer something that contradicts our plans. We told them, just write us a check for your portion, and the town will apply that towards that sidewalk project when we get that far. And here we are. You can see dirt's being moved now.
Okay. That clarification is appreciated. Thank you. Okay, Hans, sorry for interrupting.
It's always a pleasure when Sean can elaborate.
There you go.
Does very well. So that's that right there. And again, I could not say that any better. So thank you, Sean. So of course, then the rest of it, of course, has to do with the water and sewer fund. So same thing. It just has to do, essentially, the town of Andrew. I believe this had to do with, we needed to be indemnified for damages that we had incurred. So we expect to receive this revenue, and naturally, in the repair and whatnot, we are basically reimbursing ourselves for what we have spent to help cover the damages bear with me, let me double check here. Also, this, within the water sewer fund, would be the rental that Public Works is renting a location. And we have received revenue thus far. We just, we had to create a revenue line item for it. And so they've been very consistent in their payments. And so we are recognizing that revenue and just increasing allowable spending throughout the water sewer fund.
Okay. So any questions from the board? Do you understand all that?
You said the rental for property, what was, who's,
I believe Jimmy could really elaborate on that a bit better, so I'm going to defer to that.
It's the property on Smith Drive. It's the old wastewater treatment plant, the property the town owns.
and somebody's renting it?
Somebody's renting it and paying us, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Understand. Got it.
I just see the numbers come in.
Okay. Any further questions? Is there a motion to approve or deny the budget amendment number 12?
I'll go ahead and approve the budget amendment number 12.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand one more time. Good enough, unanimous? Okay, thank you, Hans.
Thank you. Next one.
All right, what do you want to do with the generator bid?
Regardless, if we get a new town hall, we defer or whatever, we're gonna need to have a backup generator. Because the one that we did have, you cannot refurbish it, you can't do
No.
anything with it, so
No.
that is needed.
We don't have one now?
No,
Well,
not
Mr.,
anymore.
may I say this?
Yes.
The generator specs are for the 21,000 square foot building. So if we plan to use the generator for a different building, we'll have to spec that out differently.
I make a motion at this time, we go ahead and table that.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor of tabling item number 4, the generator bid award, please raise your right hand.
Not in favor of tabling it?
No,
Or
in favor of tabling it. I'm sorry. Okay. How did I not get, I don't know.
I thought you said not, I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, moving on. The town manager's recommended budget message.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and members of the board, it's my pleasure to submit to you the manager's recommended budget for consideration for fiscal year '23. And this is required as North Carolina state statute. The proposed budget is balanced and includes many of the goals and objectives and strategies from the Board of Commissioners as discussed and outlined in the town's annual retreat. On March the 25th, the Board of Commissioners and staff held its annual board retreat in Anger. During the course of the day, the following financial strategies and recommendations were adopted. 1, authorize the town manager to negotiate an agreement with Harnett County regarding the library consolidation plan. Number 2, authorize to proceed with the proposed stormwater fee for both residential and commercial properties, which will be discussed at a future scheduled workshop. Number 3, authorize to proceed with Concept A to the Farmers Market project. 4, authorize to continue to proceed with the new construction of the Town Hall and Police Building. 5, authorize to chip away at the priority projects as identified in the Capital Improvement Plan. And 6, authorize to budget for anticipated new positions as presented by department heads. In addition, staff will continue to proceed with the Approved American Rescue Plan, ARP funding from the State Fiscal Recovery Fund as follows. 1, the 1.2 million gallons of wastewater treatment capacity, which is the upgrade with Harnett County Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant at $3.2 million. 2, water distribution core system replacement at $4.2 million. 3, elevated water storage tank replacement at $2.4 million, and the Southwest Basin drainage study at $400,000. And altogether, that's $10.4 million that we will receive from these funds. The highlights of the proposed budget. Under the general fund, ad valorem tax rate will remain at 53 cents per 100 property evaluation. Proposed budget does not recommend revenue neutral due to Harnett County's comprehensive reappraisal of real property, which has not been performed for more than 17 years. General fund budget is being proposed at $7 million, which is an increase of 2.5%. Utility fund for fiscal year 23 is being proposed at $3.3 million, which is a decrease of 28.6%. The reduction is due in part to the refunding and refinancing of existing loans, less capital outlay, and legal. Solid waste services contract with Carolina Trash will increase by 4.5% due to fuel increases. 6 new positions are being proposed as follows: Police 2, Public Works Utilities 2, Planning 1, and Finance 1. Next, 4% cost of living, market adjustment effective July 1 for all full-time employees. Workers' compensation increased by 47% due to claims in fiscal year 22. The health reimbursement account was reduced by $1,000 for all full-time employees. Employees will pay the first $2,000 in the town, the next $2,000. The North Carolina retirement plan system continues to increase for local government employees and also for the police officers. The Jack Marley Park Comprehensive and Master Plan recommended to continue with renovations and additions such as a new entrance sign, office renovations, playground equipment, and looking to add riprap to the ditch line along the newly installed dog park. Willow Street Junior Road Sidewalk Project, which is the engineering cost only for next fiscal year, and the Highway 210 Drainage and Sidewalk Project will carry over to fiscal year 23 and be scheduled for completion in September. Planning, Community Development, proposing a number of downtown improvements. Health insurance rate with Cigna began at a 30% increase, however, it was negotiated down to 8%. Public Works will schedule the widening of Wilma Street once the developer installs its required improvements, along with other scheduled projects. Utility Fund, a fee increase of 2.5% based on the 5-year rate and fee schedule presented by EnviroLink and was adopted by the Board of Commissioners. The proposed increase only affects the sewer rate to maintain the operations of the system and to cover the debt service. In addition, I would like to thank our entire staff for their hard work, their support, the inclusiveness during this budget process. I thank you to the town's department heads, especially Veronica, Melissa, and Hans, for the long hours and the assistance in preparing the budget. In addition, thank you to every single employee for their dedicated service to provide superior service throughout the year. In summary, as the town manager's recommended budget is presented to you tonight, an advertisement will be published in the local newspaper for a public hearing on June the 21st at 6:30. The days in between tomorrow, May 18th, and June 20th, staff, directors, and commissioners will schedule meetings to thoroughly review tonight's recommended budget. Lastly, although the recommended budget does not encompass all the requests, but it does cover top priorities as discussed by the town manager, staff, and the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so no action is needed tonight.
No action is needed. You have your booklets in front of you. You'll also see the CIP for next fiscal year, and also you'll see a CIP for the next 5 years on what is anticipated for Andrew.
What you're saying is we have until, I guess, the 18th to the 20th to make any changes?
Yes, sir. I think, as I did last year, maybe schedule commissioners 2-on-2 with staff and go over the recommended budget.
All right. Old business. We need a resolution to fix a date for annexation public hearing for property submitted by Van Stevenson. That's 74.715 acres at 1251 North Raleigh. All we're doing is fixing a date for an annexation public hearing.
I'd go ahead and make the motion to go ahead and fix the date for the public hearing for the annexation.
Okay, and when do we need that to be? Next board meeting?
June 7th. Yeah.
June 7th. Okay, is that part of
That's
your
fine.
motion?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, any discussion of this? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay. It passes unanimously, Madam Clerk, back behind the screen. Okay, secondly, also an annexation public hearing submitted by Sandra Stevenson and Peggy Hardison for 17.675 acres on NC 55 West. Would that be for also the same date?
I make a motion that we do it for the same date.
Okay, the motion is before you. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. June the 7th. Okay, thank you. Okay, that was number 2. Number 3 is the ordinance amendment to the storage, junkyard, and salvage yards. Sean, you present that.
Okay. Item number 3 under old business tonight is an item that should look familiar to most everyone in the room. This is a consideration of a potential zoning ordinance amendment related to our existing junkyards in town. To give everyone an idea of how we got to the place we are tonight, back in June of 2021, an ordinance amendment was adopted by the board. Enforcement by code enforcement officer began shortly thereafter. Deadline for compliance with the screening requirements of that amendment were in December of 2021. Enforcement action was taken against 2 properties in town, which we've discussed previously. The Nissan Automotive on Depot Street and the Stewart's Wrecker Service on North Raleigh Street. To date, the enforcement action, each property owner was fined $50 due to noncompliance. Prior to the February 15th, 22 Board of Commissioners workshop, where staff was directed by the commissioners to cease enforcement and place this ordinance amendment on hold for future discussion. At the March 8th, 2022 Planning Board meeting, the Planning Board reviewed a brand new ordinance amendment related to these same sections of the ordinance based on feedback of that February workshop. A couple of those goals was to adjust the language, specifically the removal of the word junkyard. As you can see on the screen, and there should be a draft in front of each of you with red line through the old language and adding green text for new language. Junkyard has been replaced by the ordinance's definition to storage yard. We tried to comb through everywhere we saw junk or junkyard and create a better term for it. For example, vehicle parts has replaced junk. Storage yards have replaced junkyards throughout the ordinance here. The way that the Planning Board recommended this amendment, after the effective date of the ordinance, staff will give each of these property owners that were currently in violation 60 days to comply with the screening requirements as proposed. And I'd like to go through those to remind everyone. This is for existing non-conforming junkyards. Uses we typically refer to as grandfathered in. That's what non-conforming means in official terminology. This specifically is related to the screening of unregistered and non-functional motor vehicles. This is not intended to encompass all auto body and auto repair shops. However, we have to set a threshold for at which point a property turns into a junkyard. Mm-hmm. Now, the threshold discussed by the Planning Board was to set that number at a lot containing more than 3 unregistered and non-functional junk motor vehicles. Now, there was discussion amongst the Planning Board whether to set that number at 3 or 4. That was of much debate during that Planning Board meeting. I wanted to point that out. But as is currently set in front of you here, The ordinance reads, any lot containing more than 3 junked vehicles, or unregistered and non-functional, as we're calling them now, constitutes what we used to call a junkyard, what we're now calling a storage yard, thus subjecting the property owner to these screening requirements. Essentially, to summarize, you have to build a 6-foot tall opaque fence around the junked vehicles. Not around the boundaries of the property, but around a specific storage area the property owner can choose to designate where that goes on the property, as long as those vehicles are enclosed in a 6-foot opaque fenced area. Now, as proposed, you cannot use chain link fencing with slats or supplemental screening. We specifically wrote that in there because we assume that's going to be the first question. Can I do chain link with slats? Because that is a cheaper option than a solid wood or vinyl fence. Before we go any further, does everybody understand how we got here, where we're at today, what the planning board's recommendation is to move forward?
One question, isn't there a state statute that defines the so-called junkyard, storage yards?
Yes, sir, there is.
Would it be helpful to reference that statute in our ordinance?
The way it reads today, it almost does exactly.
Okay.
The changes proposed in front of you have changed the word junkyard to storage yard, thus
Okay.
allowing us to establish our own definition of what a storage yard is,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, summarize 2 properties in town. It's on hold currently. If it's adopted tonight, letters will go out within the next day or 2 notifying these property owners that the ordinance is back on and we're giving them 60 days to install this fence. That's option 1. Option 2 is to deny this zoning ordinance amendment, allow those uses to remain grandfathered in as they have been for years. Option number 3, the board can choose to work through whatever means they find necessary to work with the property owners to have some kind of community support to help screen these properties, whether it be by berms and landscaping, whether it be by pitching in to install a fence, donating materials, donating time and labor, whatever you see fit. All of these ideas have been tossed around amongst the staff and the board in the recent months.
What is the status of the ordinance at this moment?
Staff is still operating under the direction given at that February workshop, was to pause enforcement action until this is discussed tonight.
Okay, so to the extent we pause action, then someone could come in and establish a new junkyard, or?
No, this amendment specifically pertains to existing non-conforming storage yards.
Okay.
Right. Not new junkyards or storage.
So we've got that covered.
They have their own set of rules.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make the motion, but because we've been working on this for a very long time. But I think every case we have to look at is an individual case. Some of the places here in Andrew, they're eyesores. We're not going to dispute that. There are eyesores out there. But I do know we have some businesses right now, within the year, they're not going to be here. And my feeling, I don't feel that we ought to put an undue burden on them to do the big fence and stuff like that if we know that they're not going to be here after a year. So I like the option that Sean brought up, working with every individual owner.
There does have to be some uniform standard, though. You
Right.
can't just say, I like
Right.
this one, I don't like that one.
Right. So I don't know where we go from here, but I'm just saying I think we need to evaluate every case as an individual case. Just because one does one, I mean, we have to set a standard. We do. But we can't be too lenient, but we can't be too harsh too, where it does an undue burden on the property owner.
Question for you, Sean. Now, before we start opening a can of worms with a whole new world of people. I'm very concerned about, because I know what we're dealing with too right now. But does this then suddenly tie in with, I don't know, whose businesses, service stations that have cars parked out here on cement? I mean, are we now going from 2 to 8 or 6? I mean, or is this really what brought about the service stations and things of that nature? And the only thing that I can reference it to is like the service station here with the a paved lot in the blue concrete. If they have more than 3 inoperable cars in that lot, are they subject to screening? I'm just curious. Sounds like to me we've opened the floodgate here to something even bigger.
Yeah, well, when you start getting into amortization of existing non-conforming uses, that's where it gets complicated.
What do you think brought this about? Why did that get added into it, or was it always there?
What's happening is we're trying to establish a threshold of what constitutes a junkyard, and setting that vehicle number captures other businesses we weren't intending to.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we're maybe eliminating one problem but adding to a bigger one.
And of course, cars come in and out every day. Sometimes,
of course,
you bring in a whole truckload of cars that need to be repaired, and it may take a few weeks. But that's not their typical services at the auto repair shop.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So it becomes a gray area.
What if we change the 60 days to 6 months, and then we can look at it at that point and see if we need to amend the ordinance again?
Yeah. Y'all want to do 6 months?
Was there, excuse me, guys, I am not feeling well. I'm having trouble even talking here to you. I'm assuming that all of this was brought about originally due to eyesore, not safety. I'm just checking that question. Eyesore, more than anything.
Well,
I mean,
it's both. For some, well, it depends on which one you're looking at. Some was for a safety issue, some was for an eyesore.
okay, so it was both. Because I'm questioning. I know the dumpster surrounds were both eyesore and safety. So I wasn't aware. That's why I was questioning. Say I'm making up a hypothetical. If I've got, are we requiring them to fence in it completely around all 4 sides when the public can't see a backside in a wooded area? I'm just questioning that.
I think the 2 sides, well, I don't think we need to do around the whole perimeter, personally.
But you are saying too here that it could be going down to a confined space and not talking about an entire block lot, that you do what you need to do to cover 6 vehicles. Is what this is proposing here.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine, sweetie.
So what
Do you
you,
want to do
yeah.
6 months? And maybe work with every individual case by case? I mean, if they come to us before the 6 months, we can give them some suggestions to kind of, be able to work with each individual ones? What's the will of
Well,
the
it
board?
was 6 months before, and they changed it to 60 days.
Yeah, but with this COVID and everything and the inflation and all that, I mean, this is gonna be putting a burn on some people. Y'all tell me what y'all want.
Sean, if we go with the 6 months, would your department contact these people and let them know? Is that how that works? Or,
We can. Yeah.
I mean, I'll go 6 months, but I can tell you after 6 months, I mean,
After 6 months,
Something's gotta be
they've gotta
done.
be in compliance.
something's got to be done.
I agree. Can we change the recommendation from 60 days to 6 months without further ado?
Are we tabling this particular amendment so that after 6 months we can
No,
start the
no,
clock?
we're just changing the 60 days to 6 months, right?
We're actually adopting
That's
this.
on the screen, yeah. Is that what you're saying, LaRue?
Yeah.
adopt it, but change the 60 days to 6 months, back to 6 months.
Is that what your motion is, June? Or did you
Who's-
make-
You satisfied with the 3 cars?
Well, I don't know. I mean, and is 4 gonna make a difference?
Yeah,
I'm not. I don't know that makes any difference.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
really, when you're talking about that minutia, I don't think anybody's going to be going to these service stations and counting the number of vehicles.
Right.
This was
Right.
totally meant to fix another problem. That's what I think.
But it says unregistered and non-functional. So a
Right.
service station would probably have registered vehicles.
There's some service stations here though that
Well,
their, yeah,
that's true.
their cars are not registered and, yeah, they're inoperable.
If we don't do 6 months, well, just cut it in half, do 4 months.
I'm fine with that. It says 6, just do 4.
And go to 4 unregistered vehicles, or?
Leave to 3, but
Go to 4 months.
4 months.
Okay, so your motion is to approve the ordinance, but modify section 13.11 to say no later than 4 months after the date of notification.
Correct.
Otherwise, leave it as amended.
Correct.
Okay? Any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Yay. Okay. Okay, the manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, we've got a representative from Harnett County Sheriff's Office that would like to present something to the board.
Oh, okay, certainly. I don't think that got on the agenda, I'm sorry. Sorry you had to wait all this time. but-
It was just getting good. My name's Aaron Meredith. Good evening, everybody. I'm here for, on behalf of Sheriff Coates, who apologizes. Something came up at the last minute. He was going to come and present this certificate of appreciation to you. We have a certificate of appreciation for the Andrew Police Department. Chief, if you'll come up, please. And also to the town of Andrew. But there was some, he had that certificate, and I had this one. He wasn't able to make it, so I promise I will get it to you. But during when the tornadoes went through Kentucky, the sheriff, he tells a story, and I'm not going to tell his story, but it struck him as something that he felt like he needed to help those people in Kentucky out, because that could have been us. And Andrew Town and Andrew Police Department really stepped up and helped out a lot. Y'all really did donate a lot. And we're giving a lot of these certificates away because there was a lot of people that participated, which is wonderful. But the certificate reads, Harnett County Sheriff's Office awards a certificate of appreciation to Andrew Police Department and Town of Andrew for their commitment to the welfare of others by assisting in the following program, Harnett County Cares. So I'd love to be able to get a photo with everyone. Can we pretend like we have the other one as well?
We can.
Sure.
Whichever you want to do.
Would it be okay if we take a photo?
Sure.
Up here with you guys?
Sure. Why don't y'all come on?
Would it be better if we just stood right here? Or?
That's fine.
Do we
How
need,
do y'all want to do it?
Can you
Do
get the
we need-
picture okay?
Do you want us to come down or?
Now y'all are like, oh, this is.
we'll just move in.
I'm sure.
Turn it for you.
Oh, you're fine.
Come on over here, Jim. Let's sandwich this thing in.
Come on, Bob. Sandwich in. Sandwich in.
Sandwich.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
And I'd also just like to mention that obviously the rest of the whole police department.
Thank you
It
so
wasn't
much.
just him that showed up.
Okay. All right. So now the manager's report, right?
Yes, sir. And this information I've sent to the board, I think it was in April because we were having a May 3rd meeting. So just for the new information that's come up, we have conducted a Phase 1 and a Phase 2 environmental report on the town property because it is required by USDA. Based on the removal of 2 underground tanks back in 1997. The Phase 2 report indicated 2 chemicals that exceeded the standards, but back in 1997 it did not. But the state has lowered their numbers, so now that those chemicals do exceed their standards. The Department of Environmental Quality, which is DEQ, issued a conditional notice of no further action. The conditional requirements are to record a notice to the title of the property, which we'll get to Dan when we get a signed copy from DEQ on Town Hall. And then our requirement is to send letters to the adjacent property owners. So it would be to the bank and to the bakery and across the street to Mr. Sparkman. So that was our conditional requirements from DEQ. So we've sent the information to DEQ for their review. We've signed the copies. We're just waiting for a hard copy to come back before we can place that notice on the town hall property, which says you can't drill a well. That's the only requirements there are. Also, we do have a request for proposals out for the 500,000 gallon elevated water storage tank. This advertisement was posted on May 16th, and we're looking for the submittals to be received on June 16th. And also, not to steal Jimmy's thunder, but Jimmy has and his crew has taken down the flags and the flag poles around town. So we're in the process of replacing all the old flags and the old poles with new ones, and we should have the new flags up before Memorial Day. So,
Awesome.
Any questions? All right, any staff reports?
Probably exceeded my word limit for tonight. I'll make mine short and sweet. Your Planning and Inspections Department staff reports always in your board packets. I'll hit the highlights. Over 100 permits issued during the month of April. Over 200 building inspections performed. 28 new homes permitted for construction. Over 38,000 in permit revenue, which brings your fiscal 2022 year totals to 176 new houses and counting, and over 271,000 in permit revenue. The other page of your staff report always includes the current status of our major residential projects. We do have 19 projects in the queue after the 2 sent forward here tonight, with only a couple small commercial projects, but we are working on more. Look forward to adding those to my staff report in the future. And of course, you always have your code enforcement spreadsheet attached to my staff report. If you ever have any questions, reach out to me or Shannon. If you see an address on there you have a question about.
Sean, you're planning for new positions, is that a code enforcement?
It's not. That's a planning and permitting technician position.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I think we're good.
Who's next? Library? There it is. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see in my report, I don't have a whole lot going on. We finished up all of our school year programs for the kids this last month, and we're preparing for summer programs, which will start in the middle of June. We continue to work with the Harnett County Extension Office on all of our seed library and our garden projects. They did a video with us to host and post on their Facebook page on behalf of us as well. The big thing that we found out last week was that the library was a recipient of a $2,500 grant from Dollar General. We are the only library in North Carolina who received the grant. So that is something that will fund our entire summer programs for the year. So that is something we're
Yay.
How did you do that?
That was I keep throwing them out there.
Well, whoever's writing those grants need to jump on board some others. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Whoa.
I'm going to do what I can to get money for the library. So
Right on.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Katie.
Oh, Lord.
Take it the park is next.
So at the time of my report, which was the end of April, the tennis court was about to begin. It officially was finished on Sunday, and it looks great, so.
Wow.
Awesome.
It's got pickleball lines on it. We've already gotten 2 phone calls about pickleball, and are we doing a league? And so we don't know right now. So we're looking for a volunteer pickleball commissioner, so you guys can find one.
Junior Price.
Evidently, has become very popular and continuing to become even more popular amongst all age groups. I think when it first started, it was more for people 50, 55 and above, but I think the younger middle-aged people are liking it just as much as the older people, from what I understand. So we do get a lot of interest on that. So, but it looks great. We're really excited about that. Other thing, the third thing on the list, Brian Starkey from Withers and Ravenel, he will be giving that report at the June 7th meeting. We decided to just push him back since we had so much on the agenda tonight. So he'll be here that meeting to give the report on the master plan for the new park. And lastly, we've just wanted to give you guys an update. Tonight we've got 7 fields going, 18 games, approximately 36 teams with 10 to 14 kids on each team. So if they bring 2.5 family members, that's about 1,100 people visiting the park between the hours of 5:30 and 9:30 tonight. So, and that's just kids that are scheduled to play. That's not people just down there visiting and using the picnic area, the dog park, and all that good stuff. And I don't know if I put in my report last time, we do have benches at the dog park, and they're very popular. So
Yes, we saw that on Facebook. Thank you.
thanks, guys.
Derek, I actually went down there this weekend. The park is in magnificent shape, man.
Thank you.
The new courts and everything just looks amazing. The new benches looks amazing. I do want to put it on record, though, that I was all for opening up that street after talking to you and a lot more careful consideration. I'm just one person, but I am not in favor of that anymore.
Okay.
I think it should stay the way it is until you get to where you can do something with the community center. Your plans of opening that, doing that, I think is the correct way of handling that.
Okay.
So I just want that on the record.
Thank you. Anything else?
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Hans.
We're growing. Yeah, John just said it, and it's true. We can see it through our numbers, and we know our financial situation, and we've spoken about this in the past, and we know the trajectory in which we intend on going, which is to provide the ideal best service to constituents, to everyone. So of course, naturally, the numbers are black and white. Ad valorem, compared to last fiscal year, we have collected 202,000 more. So the local option sales tax, that's the monthly distribution. We have collected 238,000 more than last fiscal year. Of course, building permits, 64,000 more, and this is as of March 31st, so, yeah. So there's a reason why these reports are a month behind. Anyways, but code enforcement nationally also 25,000 more, and that absolutely makes sense. There's no question about that. You know, with debt set off and essentially customer accounts who are delinquent, well, we recently collected 1,367, and that's good. That's good, you know. Hopefully we can beat last fiscal year. Finance has been fairly bombarded with whether it being short-staffed or, you know, of course, the transition to the new software. But it sure would be good for us to really collect on those delinquent outstanding accounts. I think at least on our record, on our books, we have about approximately, I'll just say approximately 190,000 that we just need to collect on. Some municipalities are worse.
190,000?
And I'll double check it, but on our books. Now, I can compare it to,
No, I'm questioning 190,000
yes,
to collect on?
that are delinquent. And of course, I will come back with a proper exact dollar amount. Hopefully I'm wrong.
You're saying almost 200,000.
Well, that would
And I
easily
hope it's
do.
shocking.
I mean, I could see how that could easily be done. I mean, look
Okay,
at
just-
one water
just
bill
check
that
it.
gets delinquent over a month or two. I see how easily that could happen. It is huge.
It's huge. And so again, so we all understand that especially as long as when it comes to the water sewer fund, that side of government, let alone government in general, how we would like it to operate like a business and kind of cut red tape a little bit here and there and whatnot, and just make things a little more efficient. On the water sewer side, no wonder that, of course, nationally we say, hey, your bill is due at this time of year. Make sure you pay. If you don't pay, hey, you get cut off. How else are we going to make sure that we get our collection? At the end of the day, water is among the most basic necessities in life.
Hans, with that amount that you sort of threw out there, how far back does that go? When do you stop looking at that as possible money, and does it get taken off the books? So delinquency, I mean, how far back current is that $200,000? When do you write an account off and say, we're never going to get that money?
We can go as far. We can go as far back as we would like. We can keep re-upping it with the clearinghouse debt set off. Although there is a 3-year, I need to refresh myself on that. So allow me to provide you an answer.
Sure. I'm just curious, how long does delinquent become impossible? We'd be lovely to think if we were to go out and get all that money today, well, that's never going to happen.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, at what point do you write it off the list?
Yeah, because I don't think that there's really a statute of limitations, not really, and we can double check that. Because from my experience, we were always able to, whatever municipality it was, whatever, we were always able to just re-up it, essentially. Ultimately, the biggest question is making sure that you have customers, social security numbers and whatnot. That's really the only way that we can make sure to collect what we need to collect.
Okay.
But I will get that. That is a very valid, proper question.
Now, when they get their water bill that's so far delinquent, I know we turn the water off, do we put a lien on their home or on their property or something like that so we can collect?
Garnish their wages, tax returns.
Well, we do we go through with the tax return, so that's awesome right there. There are other avenues for collections.
There's a state agency that will garnish that will take the tax return money, get it to you, as I understand it.
Well, yeah. The NC, debt set, are you talking about the debt set clearinghouse?
It's under the DOJ, I think, the Attorney General's office. But
Okay, I'll double check that. But yeah, to answer that, there are ways. As far as with adding it onto one's property taxes, I think that, and this has been about 5 years since I've last looked it up, but I think you have to allow a year or so or more to pass. And again, here I'm speaking vaguely, naturally, so that's something that needs to be double checked. But there is a process where you can then go and attach it to one's property tax. But I do believe that there's a process, and we need to make sure that of course, naturally, we have a good relationship, rapport, reciprocity with the county, whether it be Harnett County or Wake County. We are very unique in that sense. It's not just one county; it's two. That's a lot of fun. So I'll have an answer for that as well. Yeah.
Okay, any further questions? All right, Hans. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Garland L. Thompson Jr.
Hope everyone's doing well. I'm gonna be short and sweet. April is police activities. Police activities for the month of April consisted of 1,963 calls for service / officers initiated activities. Officers investigated 17 offenses, did 1,557 subdivision / security checks for the month, 18 traffic crashes, and 81 total citations. We have been preparing, in April we were preparing for the move into our new building. Our narcotics division got started, and they are excited. They hit the road running April 4th. And we will have the new town ordinance ready for y'all to view and vote on by the next meeting. It's actually complete now. Mr. Dan's got to look through it and make sure everything's good. Any
When you say
questions?
town ordinance, what are you talking about?
As far as parking tickets,
That's what I was just going to ask you.
Yep.
How are we proceeding with that? So
That's-
we're in the works of getting something finalized on that.
correct.
Great. Because I still don't see it on the report.
Yep.
Because it still doesn't exist, but
Correct.
it is moving forward and
It is.
will be happening soon. All right. Thank you.
You have any questions for me?
Jimmy.
Good evening, Board. Hope everybody's doing well. Just to follow up, as Jerry mentioned about, we've taken the flags down. We'll have those back up. We purchased new ones and new flags and new poles and have them up here shortly. We also just completed our paving resurfacing for this fiscal year. As you know, we pave every 2 years just based on budget for that. So we paved North Broad Street West from Town Hall towards the fire department, Nicholas Court, east and west Myrtle, and then Glen Meadow Subdivision. So contractors got to come back and do a little dressing up on the shoulders, but that'll complete our project for this year. And Lanier's Construction is still continuing to work on the Park Street 210 sidewalk project. So they've done a lot of pipe work over there, and it's a slow process. I think they're a little behind on getting some of their materials as far as pipe and different things like that, but they're proceeding as expected. So any questions for me?
Nope, I'd like to make a comment. Glen
Yes, ma'am.
Meadows, that subdivision looks immaculate. They
Thank you,
did an awesome job with resurfacing.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. All right. Who else? Anybody else? Anybody else going once? Okay. Anything from the board before we go into special session? So, yes.
Can I speak? I came in a little late, y'all had already pulled the list from up there, and I thought another person was going to speak for a bit.
What is the position of the board? Is there any objection? Okay, let you speak.
Mr. Mayor, I'm up here, I'm very concerned about an issue that I heard out in the field amongst the public. I know what's going on, getting ready to happen in closed session, and that's not right. Not only I know 3 other people that knows what's getting ready to happen in closed session. That ain't right. How many board members knows what's getting ready to happen in closed session? Does everybody know what's getting ready to happen in closed session, and you hadn't even been there yet?
I know nothing. I did not even know we were having I don't know anything about a closed session. So I'm saying I know nothing. I could not have said a word to anyone about it because I didn't know.
Commissioners that has revealed what's getting ready to happen in closed session. And it ain't right. I know what happened out there. I've been investigating. I've been a watchdog amongst this town. And it will be revealed. Not right now, but I'm going to turn this year council upside down. It ain't right. You need to meet in here in front of public and have the decision made in this room, not at somebody else's house. Everybody knows what's going on, and I can tell you what happened when I was a commissioner. It ain't right. So I'm asking this board to do what's right before you make these decisions, because what you're doing is not right. If I have to, I will go to the DA's office and have an investigation done. It ain't right. So y'all make your decisions.
We appreciate your comments. All right. I believe we have a closed session. You stated 143, 318, 11-356. So that was approved as part of the agenda. If we of necessity need to clear the boardroom, let's do a 5-minute recess and we'll reconvene in the closed session. What? I thought that was part of the agenda, but oh well, is there a motion? Oh, you want to make your motion? Junior? You want to make your motion? Well, I mean, we have to specify the statutory provisions. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, all in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess.